Hello, hello. Welcome everybody to the week 3 recap show. And what and what a weekend we had for week 3. Don't forget to vote for week 3 MVP between Josh Buchanan. Here are the stats here. Sleepy Garrett, wide receiver number 88 in blue there on the right side, 6 catches, 225 yards, and 3 catches. Josh Buchanan, number 88 in gray, 6 catches, 211 yards, 3 touchdowns. Keon Turner also had 7 catches, 228 yards, 2 touchdowns. And then of course Jesse Bonds, who looks like the clear winner of the week, 185 rushing yards and 6 touchdowns. Let me say again, 6 touchdowns plus 4 catches, 66 yards. William Hillard does it again, 302 yards for 5 touchdowns. 5 touchdowns plus 1 catch for 19 yards. And then Anquan Seymour, 445 yards passing and 6 touchdowns in a shootout with the Bears. What a great game that was. So don't forget to vote for your week 3 MVP, though it looks like it's clear it's going to be Jesse Bonds. So now let's take a look at the reports. We caught up with impact players. The league and the media were excited We're excited to see Tiki Carter got 213 yards and 2 touchdowns, more than doubling his season total. What did you tell Tiki Carter after the game is what they asked, or what we asked the Impact's owner, and he said, I told Carter we were proud of his performance, and he said that's what happens when you feed the beast. So big statement coming there from Impact players. Then we also had a chance to ask him, did you see the play where Elijah Lloyd, tight end for the Dragons, was completely missed, wide open in the middle of the field? Whose fault was it, the quarterback or the tight end? And the Impact player said, well, the dog pound released Platt. We're keeping Elijah Lloyd. That should tell you everything. Our tight end is best, bro, and will produce the more he gets accurate throws from the quarterback. So there you go, Impact players right there. Here's Dog Pound coming in with Jesse. They said he had a lot to say about Jesse's stocks and bonds. Set multiple records this week with the most fantasy points by a player and the most rushing touchdowns in a game with 6 touchdowns. Why was Jesse able to have so much success in week 3 as an organization? Dog Pound replied with his statement was, as an organization that provides itself on a pro football excellence, we put a lot into the thought behind this major move in hopes to give Dog Pound every chance the opportunity it gets. We also understand that Platt is an outstanding football player, and we won't just let him go like that if and when we think we can add to this club again. If he's still available, he has agreed to field our call, and if and when that time comes. As for Thomas, we had our eye on him since week 2. He has a lot of upside and just has that Mamba mentality we're looking for this time in the season. His numbers speak for themselves. Either way, it's a gamble, but scared money don't make money. So we were asking about Jesse Bonds, and I think that we gave the wrong statement there, because I think he has another statement about Jesse Bonds. But we also, and that is more about the release of big news by Dog Pound, that they released their quarterback, Dragons quarterback, Brendan Platt, and signed, where is it, right here, free agency. Dog Pound cuts Dragons quarterback Brendan Platt and signs Wolverines quarterback Tiny Thomas from free agency. So a big move there by the Dog Pound there this week. And then also we asked another question to Balls Deep now. We asked, RJ Barber didn't have a touchdown coming into week three's games and was able to score 2 on the ground and caught 1 in the air. What was the difference in this game that you think led to his success? Talking about a Balls Deep owner said RJ recently had a baby girl and decided that game and dedicated that game to her. So congratulations to RJ Barber on the game and on the baby girl. And CJ Diggs watched his teammate Keon Turner rack up over 200 yards and 2 touchdowns on Sunday and must have felt somewhat underappreciated. What was Diggs' mood after Sunday's game? Balls Deep owner replied, Diggs said, throw me the MF ball, more like WTF. So that says it all right there. CJ Diggs definitely not being used to his full potential and needs to be used more. And then right here, Favorites, last one we got. Your running back, William Hillard, is the best in the league right now and just scored another 5 touchdowns on Sunday. What did you tell your star running back after the game? The reply from the Favorites was, he is, of course, happy with his performance again this week. Like we said before, hard work pays off, and Hillard always puts in the work. Other running backs in the league should take notes. They could learn a lot from him. There you go, big statement from the Favorites. And then also we asked, you cut Sean Terry and signed John Waters after Sunday's game. What did you tell Sean Terry after the game, and was he upset? Favorites replied with tough break is what they told him. Couldn't tell you if he was mad. I'm a busy person, have to spend my time on players that are performing. So there you go, that says it all right there from the Favorites organization. And that is the week 3 media wrap up there. Now let's take a look at the weekly standings here. What happened in week 3 before we move on to week 4's matchups. So week 3 matchups was, number 1 here was Hate Club versus Favorites. They both were 1-1 coming into this game, and Favorites were able to score 177 points and beat Hate Club. When you look at the scores right there, right away you notice William Hillard with 62 points right here and 5 touchdowns, and you notice Anquan Seymour with 6 touchdowns. But look at Phil Clemens for the Hate Club that has been carrying him for most of the season. Phil Clemens, 26 yards and 1 touchdown with only 8 points on Sunday, is just unable to find the end zone. The Dragons that were 0-2 beat the 2-0 Vipers, and it was quite the game that we had on Sunday. So that was really exciting to watch, but not good for the Vipers owners and Phil Clemens, because he was only able to find 1 touchdown, 26 yards, which is really hard to believe that the Dragons were able to hold them to that. Blaine Strickland did really well as well. Darren Linton did really well, but Woody Gordon and Casey Buckley and Phil Clemens were just not enough. Though 144 points is still a lot, Favorites score 177 points with 62 points coming straight from William Hillard. 5 touchdowns he had, and Sleepy Garrett comes back to life. Sleepy Giant Garrett, 6 catches, 225 yards for 3 touchdowns. Des Edwards steals the ball from steals the reps, should I say, from Barry Perkins, the wide receiver, number 1 wide receiver for the Dragons, and it goes mostly to Des Edwards, and he gets 6 catches but had a lot more targets than that. 84 yards and a touchdown. Chester Manley comes away with a touchdown as well, but Sean Cherry, as we know, that we just heard about, got cut after Sunday's game and was replaced immediately by a player, John Waters, the 3rd receiver for the Scorpions. And Sean Cherry put up another 0, so he is gone. And then John Anderson, 4 catches for 44 yards, is good. There's nothing wrong with that at all. And then the Favorites come away and go 2-1, and Hate Club goes 1-3. Okay, next ball game here is Balls Deep versus the Spartans. Spartans were able to come away with the win with 143 points to 118 points by balls deep. First thing, when you look at all the points here, you notice 42 points coming from Evan Watkins in the 5 touchdowns, 300 yards. First thing you notice when you look at the board here is Ryan Dillon, 6 catches, 110 yards for 6 catches, 110 yards, 4 and a touchdown, 23 points and pluses. Mark McCoy, another 4 touchdowns, 34 points. You got fantasy points. And look at RJ Barber coming to life. Did not have a touchdown coming into week 3. In his first 2 weeks, he did not get a touchdown. And then this game, he's able to run away with 3. He gets 2 on the ground and catches 1 in the air. Barry Perkins also had 4 catches for 80 yards and 18 points, but CJ Diggs, 1 catch for 9 yards is just not enough there. And Wade Fulton, who also got cut by Balls Deep, will go right here to the free agency. Balls Deep cut Wolverines wide receiver Wade Fulton and signed Wolverines wide receiver Garrett Spence from free agency. So Wade Fulton is gone, and he had 1 catch for 3 yards, and that is just not enough to hold up. But look at Lonnie Steffens, 1 catch for 72 yards and a touchdown, comes away with 14 points, and I believe finished second among tight ends for the week. So he had a great finishing there, but was not able, 118 points was not enough to beat the Spartans. 143 points. Evan Watkins getting 42 points alone right there, throwing 5 touchdowns, which is pretty crazy to think about. Josh Woods, 32 yards and a touchdown, only came away with 9 points, which is pretty bad for the running back, really bad for the running back. But Jamal Olsen, 7 catches, 119 yards and a touchdown. Brent Givens, 6 catches, 50 yards and a touchdown. Rick Martin, a catch, 60 yards and a touchdown. Julian Rucker, 7 catches, 94 yards and a touchdown. Andre Hillard, 5 catches, 50 yards and a touchdown. Every single player had a touchdown for the Spartans, and it was just too much. Didn't win by much, about 22 or 24 points, 25 points. So was able to get away with the win, and what a game that was for the week 3 matchup for them. So Spartans go 2-1, and Balls Deep go 1-2. And I believe I said Hate Club went 1-3, where I meant Hate Club goes 1-2, and Farverts go 2-1. Okay, and then Dog Pound and Impact Players, the last matchup for week 3, and then we'll move right into week 4 matchups that are coming up, and then we'll also take a look at all the stats from all the players. So stick around for that if you want to see all of the stats from all of the players. Here's Dog Pound coming in 2-0, scoring 176 points, a whopping 176 points. But Impact Players 0-2 set the record for most points in a single weekend in the CSFFL history with 214 points, and absolutely smash Dog Pound, winning by 30 points, or was it more than 30 points? That's that's a lot of points, man. They won decisively, and which is unbelievable to think about, because Impact Players needed this more than anything. When you look at it right away, look at the 64 points by Jesse Bonds, who is also going to win, I'm assuming is going to win MVP of the week. And if you think about it, every MVP that's won the week whose ever team he is on has lost. So that was another point that Impact Players brought up. Like, if you look at it, we'll take a quick look at it in the MVP votings here. So this week, Jesse Bonds is going to win, and he's on the Dog Pound, and he lost, right? Last week, Phil Clemens won MVP, and he's on Hate Club, and Hate Club lost. And then Josh Buchanan, week 1, was on Impact Players team, and he lost. So if you got MVP of the week, you lose as of right now. So that's something to look at. But here, let's get right back into this last matchup where Impact Players won, and they go 1-2, and Dog Pound goes 2-1. But taking a look at it right here, we'll take a quick look at the breakdown. Brendan Platt, who was also cut this week, we were talking about how Tiny Thomas has come in and replaced Brendan Platt after Brendan Platt throws 300 yards and 3 touchdowns, gets 31 points, and is still cut. And then Jesse Bonds scores 6 touchdowns, a record. So he's got the record for most points by a single player in CSFL history. And also has the record in CSFL history for most rushing touchdowns in a game with 6. Shane Lott, 3 catches, 112 yards and a touchdown. Melvin Hudson, 3 catches, 64 yards, 2 touchdowns. Tito Snow, 2 catches, 59 yards, and gets his first touchdown of the year. Tito Snow right there. Doug Burrow, 6 catches, 118 yards and a touchdown. And Terrell Strong, only 1 catch, 34 yards. Was not enough to beat Impact Players coming in. Taylor Glover for a whopping 453 yards, 5 touchdowns, and 48 points on the day. Tiki Carter finally having a big day, 213 yards and 2 touchdowns, doubling his total for yardages on the season in a single game. Keon Turner, 7 catches, and now leading the league again at the end of week 3. 7 catches, 288 yards. Like I said, leading the league in receptions. Comes away with 2 touchdowns. Edgar Plummer, 6 catches, 118 yards and a touchdown. Josh Buchanan, 6 catches, 211 yards and 3 touchdowns. Rashawn Pleasant, 5 catches, 81 yards. And then Elijah Lloyd, 4 catches for 73 yards. Unbelievable 214 points by Impact Players, and wins the week and puts himself at 1. And here it is. Let's take a look at the overall standings here. So last week it was this: Dog Pound on top, 2-0. Farvards, Balls Deep, Hate Club, Spartans, then Impact Player last place. And then this week, Dog Pound still in the lead with 2-1, but Farvards are still in second. But Spartans come up. Impact Players go from last place to 4th place. And also, I believe it is Balls Deep goes from 3rd place to last place. And look at how the tides have turned in one weekend. And now Impact Players are 1-2, but on top of the 1-2 matchup. And then I'm looking at the matchups here, and round 4, it looks like Dog Pound, or should I say Hate Club, is versus Balls Deep. 4 versus 1. See this? So 4 and 1. So Hate Club versus Balls Deep. And they are both 1-2. So unfortunately, this weekend, even though it's a 5 games, right? So they got 2 games left. But if one of these teams loses, whatever team loses here and goes 1-3, because they're both 1-2, right? Whatever team here loses this game this weekend coming up could potentially be out of the playoffs. Also, who else is facing each other? I believe 5 versus 3. That's Farvards versus Dog Pound. So Farvards versus Dog Pound. So that's 2-1 versus a 2-1 are facing each other, and they could potentially go 3-1. And whoever goes 3-1 could potentially lock a playoff spot. So this weekend is huge, like every single week in the CSFFL. But this weekend, a player could lock his playoff spot, and another player or another team, a team could lock their playoff spot, and another team could could be out of the playoffs this weekend by going 1-3. So it is really important for the Balls Deep and the Hate Club. I'll be keeping a close eye on that, as the whole league will be. And then again, the Spartans and Impact players are playing as well. So Spartans can go 3-1, which also could lock a playoff spot. And Impact players, if they lose, could go 1-3, and that could be really bad for them. So it is looking dire for Hate Club, Balls Deep, and Impact players. And Favorites are probably sitting in the best spot right now, because no matter what happens for them, they're pretty good, because they'll be either 2-2 or 3-1, because they're facing a 2-1 team. And Spartans could potentially go 3-1 here, and take it and put the Impact players at 1-3. So let's really see what goes down this weekend, because remember that 4 teams make it and 2 teams don't at the end of 5 weeks. And then the 6th week, the top 4 teams play each other, 1 versus 4, 2 versus 3. And then the 7th week, the last 2 teams remaining play for the championship game. So I'm pretty excited about that. So with no more delay, let's get right into the stats. Also, don't forget to vote for Week 3 MVP. We're looking at 21 minutes already, so let's get through this as fast as we can. Thank you so much if you stuck around through the video so far. And here are all the stats. So this is really, really intriguing to look at if you are a fan of the CSFFL or are in the CSFFL. You're going to want to see this. This is at the end of 3 weeks. So they have accumulated 11 touchdowns. Look at their league leader is Mark McCoy with 14 touchdowns in 3 games. That is really, really impressive. 3 interceptions. Mark McCoy is looking really strong right now. Tiny Thomas tied for second for passing touchdowns with 12, with Anquan Seymour, who has only 3 interceptions. Tiny Thomas has thrown 7 interceptions, but he has also thrown 12 touchdowns. So interceptions don't matter in the fantasy league that we're playing in, so that we have set up for you guys. So don't really matter. That doesn't necessarily matter, but it affects the efficiency. Evan Watkins 11-2. Derek Albright, look at this. Derek Albright yet to throw an interception, playing very efficient. Even though they lost to the Dragons, he still did not turn the ball over. 11-0. Derek Albright. And then Bill Morris absolutely playing really well as well. 11-0. Brendan Platt is 10-2, but look how low his yardages are compared to everyone else. And Taylor Glover is 10-4. Then we'll look at the yardages. Tiny Thomas is in the lead. Here's the top 5 players that are in the lead for yards, and then we'll flip it and look for who's the bottom 5. And the bottom 5. So Brendan Platt has the lowest amount of yards in the lead, and Tiny Thomas has the most amount of yards. And Dog Pound swapped those 2 quarterbacks. So you see why when you look at the numbers, why they made that move. So statistically, it is definitely a smart move, and Tiny Thomas is playing really, really well right now. So that's the passing. Let's take a look at rushing, and then we're doing receiving, and that's pretty much it. So we'll do this real quick. William Hillard, 642 yards in 3 games. Absolutely phenomenal. Averaging 214 yards per game. Phil Clemens right behind him, even though he is Phil Clemens is second in the league for yards, and he put up a 26-yard game this week. So that just goes to show you how far ahead Phil Clemens really was. Also, Phil Clemens got 8 touchdowns, but look at the yard average per carry and per game right there on the right side here. 8 yards per carry, 9.8 yards per carry for William Hillard. Unreal averages here. Jesse Bonds, the upcoming star, setting the record is 6 touchdowns in a game. Unbelievable. has now 9 touchdowns and 455 yards, with a lot less attempts than Phil Clemens and William Hillard when you look at the attempts. Darren Page, 6 touchdowns, 408 yards. Tiki Carter is actually up there, even though he has struggled in the first 2 games. Just goes to show you what Tiki Carter can do. His average, Tiki Carter, is 9.4, and if I remember from last week, it was 3.5. So what a difference from last week to this week. Just goes to show you. Then RJ Barber for the Dragons finds the end zone twice this weekend, gets 2 touchdowns, 265 yards. Josh Woods has 181 yards and 2 touchdowns. He was cut by the Spartans. And then Andre Bond has no rushing touchdowns yet on the season. 120 yards in 3 games. Okay, so then we'll go. We looked at the touchdowns, leading touchdowns. We looked at the yards. And then we'll take a look now at the receiving guys. 25 catches, 25 receptions by Keon Turner. Burner Turner or Keon Returner, whatever you want to call him. He's got 25 catches in 3 games, which is absolutely phenomenal. What is that? That's like 8 catches a game. 419 yards. He's averaging 16 yards a catch and has 4 touchdowns, averaging 139 yards a game. Real good receiver right now, Keon Turner, and Tiny Thomas has been lighting it up. Josh Buchanan, both of these top receivers here are impact players, so just goes to show you how much points they're getting from receptions. Josh Buchanan, 19 catches, 460 yards, and 6 touchdowns. Sleepy Giant Garrett for the Farverts has 16 catches, 406 yards, averaging 25 yards a catch and 6 touchdowns, and he put up a 0 in week 2. So good to see him back as well. Also good to see Barry Perkins get a touchdown as well. But it goes to show you Sleepy Garrett got 6 touchdowns basically in 2 games. Juwan Rucker. So both of these receivers are on the same team. 16 catches by Juwan Rucker, 297 yards, 18-yard average, and 3 touchdowns. Darren Linton is on the same team as Josh Buchanan, so Anquan Seymour is throwing it up. 15 catches, 273 yards, and 3 catches. Des Edwards, 15 catches, 200 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Jamal Olsen, 15 catches, 239 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Brent Gibbons, 15 catches, 259 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Ryan Dillon, 14 catches, 284 yards, 20-yard average, and 3 touchdowns in 3 games is really impressive. Shane Lott, 13 catches, 393 yards, 30-yard average, and 5 touchdowns. That's absolutely phenomenal. Then Melvin Hudson, 13 catches, 499 yards. Believe he leads the league in yards and touchdowns. 38-yard average, insane. Per catch, 8 touchdowns, 166 yards per game. Melvin Hudson is on fire this season with Mark McCoy, who also leads the league in touchdowns, passing, and yards. Tiny Thomas leads the yards, but Mark McCoy has the most passing touchdowns. Jesse Bonds. Whoa, Jesse Bonds is up here, and he is a running back, guys. 12 catches already in 3 games. Jesse Bonds, 210 yards, 17 yards a catch, and 2 touchdowns. He's averaging 70 yards receiving a game, and he's a running back, guys. Edgar Plummer, 12 catches, 255 yards, averaging 21 yards a catch, 3 touchdowns. Rashawn Pleasant has not seen the end zone yet. 12 catches, 183 yards, and also Sean Anderson has not seen the end zone yet, but he is the first tight end that we've seen up here, so he's getting lots of catches and yards. 12 catches, 161 yards, but no touchdowns. Chester Manley has 3 touchdowns, 11 catches, 243 or 42 yards, averaging 22 yards a catch. Barry Perkins, finally, Barry Perkins, but he's only had 10 catches, but has 317 yards, 31-yard average, holy smokes, but 5 touchdowns, averaging 100 yards a game. Barry Perkins has only had 10 catches in 3 games. Woody Gordon, 6'4" wide receiver, has 10 catches, 156 yards, and 1 touchdown. Doug Burrow, 10 catches, 245 yards, and 3 touchdowns. CJ Diggs, 9 catches, 192 yards, and a touchdown. Blaine Strickland. So the list goes on. I can show you everyone here. I'll just go through it real slowly so you can take a look at your guys. Sorry, I'm getting excited here, but we're already at 30 minutes, so I'm just going to go through this just a little faster. But this is basically what the league looks like after week 3. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you made it this far, thank you for sticking around. But this is basically the breakdown of what everyone's stats are. There's a few, here it is, boom. Few things you want to see. He leads the league in touchdowns, and he leads the league in yards as well. And I believe Josh Buchanan is in 2nd place. And then it goes Keon Turner and Sleepy Garrett. Basically are the big guys, and then Shane Lott. So just goes to show you what the receiving looks like. Also what the return, just to look at the return yards, just to get an idea. 3 touchdowns, 2, 1. Just goes to show you for next season when we look at the return game. And but yeah, what else can we look at? We can take a look at the standings. The Bears are 3-0, Lions and Vipers are 2-1, and everyone else is 1-2. So they got a big week for them as well coming up. The Bears actually have the most points, 172 to 170 from the Lions, but they got 172 points because they scored 70 points in one game. So the Lions really doing it consistently and are playing really, really good offense. And then there comes the Wolverines. We'll take a look at the schedule. Sharks versus the Bears here. Here's the numbers right here. When you look at the first rushing offense from the Bears, that stands out right away. Then the Dragons versus the Tigers. Number 1 defense from the Dragons versus the 2nd overall defense from the Tigers. Something to look forward to. Then the Lions versus the Scorpions. This should be exciting to see. 2nd in points per game from the Lions, and the 3rd best passing offense from the Scorpions. So that's really exciting to see. And then the last game, I believe, is the Wolverines versus the Vipers. And the number 1 offense in Tiny Thomas and Jesse Stocks and Bonds, number 1 offense coming, and the Vipers are coming to town with their 4th best in the league for points per game and 3rd best in turnover differential. So we'll see this game, and it's going to be exciting, that's for sure. Thank you so much, guys, again for sticking around. And have yourself a good weekend, and I hope you look forward to week 4. Take care. Bye.